All right. Hi, everyone. Am I audible?
Audible.
All right. Yeah, the time forecast bidding is already over, so we're going to start the open quarterfinal round of NUDC 2021. All right. Before we start, I would just want to say that this has been a very competitive tournament. So congratulations for all of the 4 teams for having reached this stage. And I will be the chair adjudicator for this round. My name is Akita from Undip, and you can refer to me as she or her. And judging with me are 4 other excellent judges, and I will invite them to introduce themselves. So please, for all of the panels, you can introduce yourself one by one. Maybe starting with Balkis.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Balkis. From Universitas Indonesia. I will be the panel in this chamber.
Thank you, Balkis. And the next, Bobby.
Hi, my name is Bobby. I'm from University of Surabaya. I'll be the panel for this round. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you, Bobby. And then Devi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Devi. I'm from Airlangga. Good luck for this round. Thank you.
Thank you, Devi. The last one, but not least, Wilson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wilson Nathanael. I act as a panel in this round. Good luck to everyone.
Thank you, Wilson. So that's for all of the panel of educators. Now, I will also invite all the teams to please introduce yourselves, not only for general niceties, but also to check your microphone, starting from opening government. Hello, opening government.
Okay. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Hello, I'm Maulidia Hanamufida. I'm as Prime Minister. I'm from Politeknik Samarinda.
All right. Thank you, opening government. Next, opening opposition.
Hi, I'm Sekarwai Rinusmara, acting as the leader of opposition from Universitas Sebelas Maret.
Right. Thank you, opening opposition. And next to closing government. Closing government.
Yeah, hi. It's Rakian here, acting as the government whip. I'm from Universitas Gadjah Mada.
Thank you. Closing opposition, please.
Yep, I'm Mada from University of Lampung.
All right, thank you. Closing opposition. Right, before we start, just a general reminder that please keep, we highly suggest you to also keep your own timer. I will also keep the timing and we'll use the chat box to inform you of the timestamp. And then also for POI, don't forget to state your preferable POI method before you start the speech. For other speakers, please take note of the preferable POI method being stated by the speaking speakers. When in doubt, just use chat box as the default POI method. Okay. Now, as this is being streamed, please turn on your camera, especially when it's time for you to speak, unless there is a logistical issues that prevents you from doing so. Also, because we have quite a number of observers, I just want to remind all of the observers to please always mute yourself. Accidents sometimes happen, but please be aware of your microphone status, and also please refrain from sending any messages through chat box, as the chat box will be used as a timer reminder as well as POI giving method. All right, just cheer them from your heart, and please try your best not to interrupt the debate. Right, without further ado, with the motion, with the motion, this House believes that music streaming services should distribute compensation from users only to specific artists that they listen to, as opposed to equal distribution to all artists within that particular genre. Let's begin the debate by calling upon the Prime Minister from the opening government. Time and place is yours.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are. I'm just going to check with everyone if you can hear Prime Minister clearly with the other manager. Okay, thank you. All right, you can start now.
Gender pronouns she or her. POI method preference, just unmute yourself because I'm not seeing any chat box. And yeah, I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Imagine that all you wanted to listen is Ariana Grande's music, only but the platform you use limiting you to do that unless you pay for premium every month. Not everyone gonna do that, right? And it's not a pleasant situation for all of the actors in this debate. As audience, you don't like any other's music and you have your own preferences and you want to only hear from your favorite artist. And yeah, for example, Spotify depends on playlists and give them the same contribution to all of artists included in their playlist just because they are in the same genre. It means platform pragmatically set value to your music just because you have the same genre. And why the problem happen? Firstly, you as company who serve music platform often step in by illegal company who copying your platform but crack all of the code in order for audience to get premium services. It's because you not take interest of your audience. And secondly, user have to compensate all the artists they heard, even if they don't like it, they are not consented of it and feel like it's not worthy to pay for subscription fee. And lastly, less quality music will happen under their side, since artists think they got so small incentive and might not align with their hard work to make artwork, and they have to divide their compensation with others artists just because they are in the same genre. So what is our goals in this debate? Firstly, we will giving bigger compensation for example, money, support, etc. only for favorite artists for the user based on their artwork. And secondly, how it's gonna give benefit to company because they are give interest to their user, and it might be lessly to take them to pay premium fee and subscription fee, and audience will take this as pleasant platform and so on. So the actors in this debate, for audience, company, and artists, and what's their interest? Audience only care about their favorite artist since they like their style, their uniqueness, their persona, and so on. And company try to find much more incentive for it, right? And even if opposition might say, oh, they do that because they think their user would like it, because user might like the genre, not the favorite artist, but no, because audience have their own preferences and they like music because how the artist giving their creative content and so on. And artists try to get interest from audience, right? So they are basically it's basically the fair competitive competition, because like audience like you because you being your just the way you are, and artists try to giving them their best without additional advantage from company just because company put them in the same playlist like other popular artists. So what's the solution, and why the solution in the status quo no enough? Maybe my opposition said, oh, it's already progressive because you take much more incentive for a new artist, for example. We said no, because new artists will always have their own interest like advertisement, and they can gain it for another platform. And we want to match user consent and want rather than concern about artist well-being, because it's all the prerequisite for artists to advance in your career, right? And why it's justified? Firstly, why we have to disvalue specific artists and they have to divide their income into another artist just because in the same genre, right? We will make more fair competitive competition, since we are gonna give bigger compensation for the specific artists that have many followers just because they do their hard work and they already advance in their career. And
On that point,
how our proposal, yes.
however, on your world, then the streaming services will be very monotonous and the listener will not have any fun at all. And just what is the meaning of art when everything is flat? Because you are going to shut off these new artists from actually coming in and getting those chances.
No, we are not gonna shut off the new artists, but we will make more fair, because it's not because you are just make music without, like you have more value because you are not valued by your genre, but because your quality of your music. So it's not because you will shut off them. No, you will give your best art and try to learn for your mistake, to promote you to have better branding, for better quality of your music, and then you will advance. Not because company give you incentive because you make the same genre. It seems like unfair, right? And my opposition might say our trade-off is really big, better rather than our benefit. For example, opposition might think that new artists will be much more harder to advance in their career because they don't have any access to being catered by this kind of music streaming services. But no, we said no, they could stay, can be recognized by their followers because they have a specific persona and their particular genre, particular quality of music. And we think it's more fair for artists to get into their career because they are basically have already do hard work and have their quality. It's not because like, oh, okay, we will just giving more access to new artists regardless to their quality. It's not like that. They will learn by their mistake, and they will make more better quality of music, and you as company would get this kind of incentive too. Therefore, vote for OG. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for the fine speech. The Prime Minister spent 7 minutes and 10 seconds. Now to open the case from the opposition branch, I would like to call upon Leader of Opposition. Chairman, place is yours.
Am I audible and visible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, please give me some time to set up my own timer. Please do not POI me throughout the chat because I won't be looking at the chat most likely. Please unmute yourself, but do it, do it responsibly. Okay, I set up my own timer. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. The main point of the government's side of the house is the fact that they believe, first, if this kind of thing, if this proposal comes up with the cases of the opposite side of the house, then there will be a general lower quality of music because people then will think that no matter what kind of music they put out, then they're still going to make money anyway at the end of the day. So there's no incentive for them to improve the quality of their music. However, we believe that the existence of artist diversity actually promote artists to improve their overall music quality. Why? Because by seeing the fact that in streaming services, there's so many diverse groups of artists within the same genre, and they all have different delivery, they all have different lyricism, they all have a different way of delivering their melodies. This kind of climate create a healthy environment in which artists understand and feels like they have the incentive to improve their music in order to stand out among those peers. Because this relates to the second point that the government side of the house brought up, the fact that they believe that by doing this thing, the opposite side of the house will undermine the hard work of already popular and established artists and will actually robbing them out of their money. But what everyone in this chamber have to understand is that the main goal of artists putting their music in streaming services is not to get get money through AdSense or ad placements or streaming revenues. Those are not the main goal of artists putting their music into streaming services, including popular artists. What they want is actually to get as much reach as possible. Because that's what they because that then will relate into how they can actually make their money. Most artists do not actually make their money out of streaming revenues. They make their money out of physical or digital album sales, out of concerts, out of being called into going to events. Those are the types of jobs and the type of gigs that actually give artists money. And the way artists can have access to those kind of gigs, to those kind of jobs, including even already well-established artists, is by putting their music into streaming services. Going into our own argument, the first thing that everybody has to understand is the different context of streaming service. What's particular about streaming services in comparison to online music stores is that customers are not paying for only one album or one artist's work, but they're paying paywall subscription-based platform. That's what differentiates Apple Music from iTunes. With Apple Music, you pay a monthly subscription to access the whole library for a limited amount of time, while with iTunes, you pay once for only an album or a specific single or track for an unlimited amount of time. And so if what the opening government is so concerned about the fact that specific fans only want to listen to Ariana Grande and they don't want to pay the whole subscription for Spotify or for Apple Music to listen to all these no one knows artists, then all they have to do is not subscribe to this kind of services, because at the end of the day, these kind of services are not targeted toward this specific group of fans that already have an established fan base or an artist that they so adore. Why is paying all artists within that particular genre is actually pretty reasonable, because what you have to understand is that in streaming services, most people engage and listen to music not by looking up a specific artist. Most people don't actually do that. Most people actually want to discover artists. That's why in Spotify or Apple Music, listening to a playlist is a very common occurrence, and playlist is actually the most favorite and the biggest service that Spotify actually provides. That's because the market, the people who subscribe to these kind of services do not go into those services in pursuit of only one artist. They want to listen to a lot, and because those kind of streaming services is what provide that, that's why they decide to subscribe. What is the actual mission of streaming services then? What is their impact on the growth of music industry? The mission of streaming services is actually to make music more accessible and make discovering music easier for a lot of people who might be interested and who might be wanting to diversify their genre of music and their playlist and the artists they're discovering. But it's not easy before the existence of Spotify or the existence of Apple Music, because back then you have to commit. You have to pay to buy an album on iTunes or buy a digital CD in order to be able to discover this kind of artist. Yes.
I think it's not true that people just care about playlist features. Most people actually stream 2 to 3 favorite artists. Like, people have idols, right? So it's untrue that they just search for playlists instead of like just several artists only.
Okay, but even if that's the case, actually a lot of people discover new artists. Why? Because it is what is being pushed by these streaming services, and because people see that is the benefit of subscribing into this kind of specific streaming services, that they can discover new artists and that they have a diverse music taste. If people want to commit to specific artists, they can do other things. They can buy albums, they can buy iTunes pieces. That's what actually separates streaming service in comparison to that. The impact of streaming services is what actually enabled the growth of the music industry, the rise of newer and younger artists, even give indie artists their own platform. Who will benefit the most from this kind of propositions that is being brought up by the opposite side of the house? definitely the young and undiscoverable artists. Why should we care about them? Because the industry has changed so much since the existence of streaming services that actually a lot of artists put out their music first before being discovered by label. But back in the day when these kind of things don't exist yet, people need to be auditioned and need to be discovered first before being able to put out their own music. This is why this is important, because by allowing these kind of things to exist, we incentivize younger undiscoverable artists to put out their own music, to know that they will be compensated, to know that there is a chance for them to success. How can we ensure that bigger artists will love to leave the platform? And because they will still get the discoverable that they want from the bigger public, and because at the end of the day they will get their money from other means, and they will actually not lose a very significant amount of income by sharing their income with other artists within the same genre. And that's why I beg to oppose.
All right, thank you, Leader Opposition, for the fine speech. You spent 7 minutes and 27 seconds. Continue on to Deputy Prime Minister. Time on bless is yours.
Hi, Kak. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Oh, thank you. Okay. My name is Togi. I'm from Politeknik Negeri Samarinda. My PR preference is just unmute your mic. And no specific gender pronouns. You can refer me by he or him, but just refer me to my position. Yeah, let me set up my time.
Sorry, I just want to make sure. Do you use mic, a separated mic?
Yeah, I just use the same mic.
Please be mindful of the distance between microphone and your, because sometimes the volume, yeah.
Okay, sure, Kak. I can do that. Okay. Okay, I'm going to start my speech. Oh yeah, just a disclaimer. I will try to accept one POI, but morely focus upon CO. So yeah, we'll start my speech in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think the rebuttal towards the opening opposition is very simple. Number one, look, problem regarding equal distribution. Number one, look, we say if what we reach or accessibility is not that concern. I don't know what their goal is, because exactly that's an exposure. For second, look, opposition never said why equality playing field for artists who didn't get exposure is important. Because notice even worse, notice how OO contingent on characterization of people interest is that they wanted to listen to everyone. Not only is that unlikely, but lack of likelihood why that it will be fall into that characterization all alone. I'll prove to you why that's not the case. But second of all, look, as long as we show our industry grows as well, we take the debate from the OO and also like the closing debate as well. Look, the argument is very simple. Number one, my first argument, why being specific is actually creating a better competition even to you as an artist. Artists live in tight conditions such as lack of income in concert, less of non-endorsement because you didn't get lots of exposure as you used to do and whatnot. That's what we concede. But problem is, notice how market feel with audience who seek more playlists coming from their preferred artists, such as Tyler the Creator in rap, or even Frank Ocean in R&B, or maybe you listen to Dua Lipa due to her pop. Because notice new music is hard to digest. Attention span is very limited towards the people, because most likely the reason why you go to Spotify is just you wanted to relieve your stress, and the most likely how you going to relieve your stress is by listening to the popular artists that you have grown attached to. Most likely what happened in opposition is that they will have more hard time to access upon what does this lyric even mean, what does the function of that particular song, or even is this the popular genre that I wanted to try upon. But opposition identity unfair playing field, no chance of surviving, or company attract less entrances to make content is what I'm going to try analyze upon. First reasoning, number one, unfair playing field is not exclusive to us, because even if it comes to hefty price, notice how this trickle down towards the artist in a certain way with three analysis. Number one, Tyler the Creator know that the sense of rapping with odd feature without a sense of clear identity, because it's basically, monotone as well, right? But what makes him better is that he knows that it's not functioning to proper, to go with odd feature. That's why he tries to be better by lead him to jump out as individual artists. This trickle down to better self exploration, knowing what genre works and what not, testing yourself to your own limit, whether or not you can operate in another genre. Second of all, look, even if not, we say artist has a chance to make sure their PR works really well. That's the problem within the opposition, because notice that sometimes the artists didn't take this into consideration. That's why we say that the better improvement towards the artist is far more contingent to us, because most likely, if you're not going to do that, most likely you're going to be left out, right? Such as Bruno, who focused to be more glamour and funky, this is going to attract more people. But third of all, even that's not the case. We said that they will focus to certain or try new market segmentation, such as how Billie Eilish targets younger generation to make sure that her music works. Let's talk about this artist that who works hard. We say that, look at their struggle to trial and error, syncing the music, producing the music, working with different producer, burden. You have also burden from your fans, keep asking you to keep better and better. We say that those who are succeed in our case, we say that they work they work their own self off, and we say that they, at the very least, we say that they have the right to prosper in terms of getting more revenue. Notice opposition might say externalities will play a big part under our cases, but no, artists comes with a lot of spectrum. Those who might be underprivileged work better under our case, because so niche benefits is not going to be in government. But second of all, in terms of surviving, there is three analysis. Number one, look, you as an artist have a consent problem does exist, right? You know for sure how easy to access music platform will create more competitor, hence less piece of cake you can take upon as your benefit. At the very least, that's there. Second of all, I think that look at the alternative wise. Artists will try their best to work within a certain label to make sure they can operate within mobile, trying to try and do some music without worrying. At the very least, we minimize the harm. But third of all, I think that notice how hard right now music industry has been. We say security, maximizing your profit. Tackle the idea that you need to recoup all of that loss you made along the way in ads, commercialization, trial and error, or even your creative process might took along a lot of, for example, like, expenses and so on. This is where we say it's not easy, even if you're going to succeed under our case. That's why you deserve all of that compensation. But third of all, the incentive for content to be created is less toward our side. I'm going to assume that this is going what CO or maybe OO trying to bring. Three reasoning. No, music have another incentive per se. You have this government funding to inject money to make sure they also get the benefit, such as concert through taxing and whatnot. Most likely benefit is going to be there. But second of all, even if so, I know this is as jargon as it sounds. Look, passion for music won't stop. You know for sure you might have the urge, what if I made my own version of EDM rather than what Skrillex have done in the early 2000s? You will try to, trial and error making your own way version of music, or even the idea for you to get up out of specific economical constraint. Music might be the only way for you to opt out. So most likely the benefit is going to be there. So benefit goes to us as well. But say that's not enough. Company can easily try to inject money, such as PayPal or maybe Warner Music Group label will try to invest because they know for sure they need to invest. But local talent will brought new artists because they knew they need to maintain their own wheel of income. Even more, investment is not that pricey. It can be done at home. So basically that's what our incentive can be. But second of all, before all of that, CO, do you have any PR? Do you have something? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Second argument, worst case scenario, why losing is basically okay. Look, notice, take the very worst case. Say we take the argument coming from OO regarding monotonous. Why monotonous is basically fine? Because number one, we say it doesn't make sense because even if you are in the extent that you actually succeed as an artist under our side, you most likely try to diversify because audience can easily be bored sooner or later. Just look at Taylor Swift coming from country music and then trying to switch her music to pop because she knew there's a big audience in pop music. Or even, for example, Bruno Mars coming from pop glossy teenage music, try to make it more 24K magic, funky, and so on and so forth, because they knew there is a rising funky music, there is attention in terms of audience, in terms of musical industry. Therefore, we don't think that in terms of monotonous, our worst case are going to be what opposition have said. But even so, we think that opposition then need to prove why then monotonous is basically a harm that is going to trickle down towards our stakeholder. Because say you just don't excel. Look at the very worst case, opposition need to characterize why then monotonous is very important towards all of the stakeholder. But even if that's not the case, we say that we just benefit to high end. Look, this artist most likely feel like they needed to invest to another artist trying to gain more exposure, right? Before that, before all of that, most likely that's going to happen. Therefore, we think that in terms of equaling the playing field, that's going to happen to us as well. So I don't get what opposition benefit then exclusive is really is. So therefore, we take the debate. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Deputy Prime Minister, for the fine speech. You spent 7 minutes and 13 seconds. Now, to continue the case from opening opposition, I would like to call upon Deputy Leader of Opposition. Time and place is yours.
Before I start, may I have a drink first?
Sorry, I can't really hear you that clearly.
Can I drink some water first?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you. My preference for the POI will be that you can just unmute yourself and then you can just call out to me. If you want to chat, it's also fine, but chances is that I won't be able to see the chats.
Yeah. Also, is it possible for you to turn on your camera?
Oh yeah, sorry, I was opening it. Yeah. Let me set the timer first. My speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Now let us take a step back first, because the debate is getting out of hand right now from the very original motion. We are talking about how we are believing that music streaming services should distribute compensation from users only to the specific artists that they listen to, as opposed to the equal distribution to all artists within that particular genre. The opening government seems to be swayed away to only talking about how whether we are going to subscribe to only one artist or to all, whether we are going to pay to only one kind of artist or not, because I want to say that is not how streaming services is going to work, and not also in the future, because one of the main goals of streaming services is to make music more accessible to a lot of people, especially during this digital era, something that is much more affordable, something that is more accessible for a lot of people out there in the world, and therefore promoting artists more, promoting arts more, and perhaps helping people out there, because we know music also has a lot of messages and encouragement that could help those people out there. Now, the second thing that is a little bit weird is that the speaker seems to forget about the feature called search, as if it does not exist. She talks about if there is a lot of artists, the new artists will then distract the people. Well, in reality, if you really do just want to hear the popular ones, then you can just type the name up. We are not going to restrict anyone to only listen to new ones and so on, but we are going to give you this platform that is much more diverse, because we are giving you more opportunity for those new artists to be brave enough to actually go out there and put out their music, so you have more options now. Now, why is this much more possible in our world when compared to this side, in which we actually see that it's very ironic how they are talking about Bruno Mars, Billie Eilish, and so on, when these people, some of them are actually not able to actually be popular if we are not going to give them those opportunities. And unfortunately, in this era, indie artists exist, and if you do not give them these kinds of incentives within these streaming services, I believe Spotify, Jukes, and so on won't be able to have as much diversity as it is now. For example, perhaps you have friends who are not musicians formally, but actually makes music as well, and was able to post it on Spotify in hopes of those little revenue that could actually help support his life, or to actually be able to help him to actually be focusing on that career because he loves music so much, passionate, and so on. The government seems to also see this as one of their importance, but however, the way they are going to then glorify this mechanism will actually shut off these kinds of people from actually entering into the industry, because these small artists, take note, do not have enough revenue and resources as much as those that are already popular, like Ariana Grande and so on, that they mentioned recently on their previous speech. But before, let me just tell you 4 things. These are 4 points that have to be proven in today's debate to see which one is actually give more beneficial arguments. First, we have to take consideration about the streaming services industry position in this motion. The second one, the new artists themselves, the popular one with high resources and quality production, as well as the 4th one is the listener. And I'm going to explain to you why on the side of the opposition we are going to protect these 4 actors much better. First of all, from the most vulnerable one, the new artists, why are we going to actually give them more chances when compared to the government world? This is because remember that when you are going to enter your music in Spotify, It's not free. There is no free lunch. Spotify need money to pay their workers and so on. Therefore, you need to also pay some subscription to actually special ones to actually put your music in there, perhaps about a few dollars up to 10 and so on. Now, if you do not have these kinds of motion in which you are going to distribute these compensation to all artists within specific genre, new artists that does not have as much revenue then won't be able to have the courage to actually take the chance, because then how are they going to win against big names like Ariana Grande, like Dua Lipa, even some indie artists that is starting to rise already? It's so hard and harsh inside the music industry because there is just a lot of ideas floating around, new ones every single day. Even the popular artists still put out new music since Britney Spears, even though she's now not very active, but she still puts out music, right? It happens every single day, and the competition is very hard. Now, if you're actually able to then give an equal distribution, you're going to help these small artists to actually be able to have even a little revenue that can actually support them, and therefore they can actually push out their career in the music industry, and therefore it's going to actually enliven more the quality of the overall music industry. You're going to empower these new artists, you're going to give more color to the streaming services. Before I move on, yes.
Don't you think small revenue likely happen under your side, since artists have to divide their incentive with other, no matter how hard you make your music, and bigger incentive for artists that have quality, exclusively have enough incentive, happen under our side?
Now, fairness is very subjective, I say. We need to put it on scale to know which one is much more better. We need to see fairness that actually benefits the most actors in this motion, especially. Why? They might say that it is much more fair because, for example, Ariana Grande put up more high quality production, therefore she will get more incentives because there are more people listening to him. What about the new artists that just came out? Like, for example, Teresa just came out with a song called Debate is Stressing, and then no one is going to view my music. I have 0 view. How am I going to survive in this industry if I have to pay $10 to actually just put out this music, to actually just embark and try my luck? But on the other hand, there are also people with only 2 views, but then there are on the contrary have people who have 1 billion views, 100 million views. Is that fair to you as well? I say no. That is why actually by having this equal distribution, we're going to help out and pick up these new artists and therefore giving them those more chances. And it is ironic how you're trying to support them but not giving them this chance. Now, the second one is that it also benefits the streaming services as well, because now you give more incentive to more people, more chances, then therefore more people will subscribe to you, will actually more put out more music on your sites, and therefore as a company you will also benefit a lot, right? Isn't it a good deal for Spotify and so on as well? Well, at the same time benefiting the listeners, because now they have a lot of ranges of genre, they have a lot of range of musics in the new one, like Teresa Debating is Stressful and so on. You can have all of these kinds of options, and it's very great and amazing because this is justified because they pay subscription to the whole subscription of the month, not only to one artist, and therefore it's great that they can actually have a bigger access on that streaming platform. And the fourth one, perhaps the government can then say, what about the quality, high quality one? Isn't it unfair for people who have 1 billion views? We say no, because the main revenue that they get is actually not from streaming services. What they get is from the album settlements and so on. Streaming services is actually talking about the chart, popularity, accessibility, and that is the main point. They are just trying to put out their names. They're trying to just gain the attention from those charts and from these kinds of virality that is going on nowadays, and therefore they can still get the incentive they want, even though we are going to put the equal distribution of the compensation. And that is why we are very proud to oppose, because we give more benefits to more actors, and therefore we are giving you a much more better world on our side. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Deputy Leader of Opposition, for the fine speech. You spent 7 minutes and 12 seconds. Now to open the second half of the debate, I would like to call upon the government member. Chairman, place is yours.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. If you have a POI, please put it on the chat box. I will be constantly looking at it. And gonna just start my speech in 3, 2, 1. So what we got from opening opposition is 2 things. The first one is that they talk to you about that most people don't actually want to listen to one particular artist. They want to listen to just shuffle songs, right? I think that this response does not answer the burden thrown to them at all. Because if it's true that people want to listen to separate songs from different types of artists, then we can just still pay them per user stream every time their music is played, right? You don't have to pay for the whole album if you are playing more than one artist songs, I don't think that they understand how Spotify works. But second of all, they talk to you that small artists needs money to grow. That's a lie. If you are alienated from Spotify and other mainstream streaming platform, which we will prove to you why this is likely, you won't ever get any money. But second of all, you will create a toxic environment in the music industry due to the fact that big artists would probably not want to do collaborations with you because you have stolen their money. So at best, you stay stagnant under your side of the house. I think that as an artist, just getting money wouldn't be the main interest, right? Otherwise, they would have just accessed any other jobs. I think it's within the interest of these artists to not only get money, but also grow and be exposed as an artist, which we will prove to you why that happens under our side of the house, right? I'm going to begin by telling you what this debate is not about. This debate is not about which one deserves to get money, because we say that all of them needs to be compensated, right? That's why opening benches are deadlocked. This should be a concession, and to choose one over the others just does not make any sense. I think knowing that there is a systemic problem in the music industry by, for example, predatory records labels, for example, this debate should talk about how we give them compensation that they deserve rather than to cut off one compensation and give it to the other, right? What we want under CG is clear. We want to distribute the profit based on the user stream and not based on the genre. That means that we agree that big artists are going to get more profit and small artists smaller, but we think this is comparatively better than a cross-profit distribution. This is the only way that we can guarantee small artists having this exposure that they deserve, due to the fact that if you divide profit, big records label will exclude small artists from Spotify. This has been hinted by OG, but we are going to expand and mechanize this idea to prove why the likelihood of this exclusion is correct, and why this leads to piracy and backtrack our progress back to 2009, where artists are largely disincentivized from making any music at all, leading to less representation from small artists and minority arts. I'm going to talk about two things in my speech. Firstly, I'm going to talk about why compensation to artists will be better under our side. I'm also going to integrate some of my ideas about more exposure to small artists through mainstream music streaming platform. And second of all, I'm going to talk about how do we solve the problem of predatory record labels under our side of the house, right? So firstly, I have like 3 reasons why compensation to artists will be better under our side. Reason number 1 is because I think the biggest generalization of the opposition bench was to say that if they do this, record labels will not react at all. Therefore, everyone will be happy with the division of profit that they get. Notice that most of the time, it's the record labels who get to decide whether they want to sell their music in Spotify or YouTube Music. It's not Ariana Grande who decides these kinds of things. Ariana did not receive their money from Spotify directly. She only has 30% of profit from Spotify because the rest has to go to the record labels, right? This point is to prove that record labels are actually the ones who are benefiting the most out of this. They are profit oriented because they are, companies, right? They are more likely not going to allow Spotify to sell their music, and they will have to make Spotify choose between selling big artist music and small artist music under their side of the house. So obviously, under their side of the house, Spotify will have to choose to sell only big artist music, right? To make sure that they don't have to divide their profit to smaller artists, and because big artists have much more profit rather than selling smaller artists. This is bad due to the fact that there will be an even more exclusion to small artists. Not just they won't get any money because no one will stream their music at all under their site, but they're just unlikely to get any exposure at all, making their whole band unsustainable. So under your side of the house, no small artist will ever sustain at all. Why is this harm important, and why is this the most important contribution? This means that under your side of the house, the barrier of artists to enter the industry is very, very high. You're going to most likely limit the less mainstream artists, for example, like the less mainstream genres, for example. And this looks like limiting, for example, the minority music due to the fact that perhaps the ideas that are expressed in the music does not fit in the majority of the society's ideas, for example. This is important because the essence of music was always to become an expression of art and also a form of political criticism, which you wouldn't have at all under side opposition. This needs a lot. Not to only be shared to the audience that are already aware about these types of ideas. Like, for example, the music of Fuck the Police, for example, does not only need to be exposed to like the African American people who experience police brutality, but also to the white people who may not necessarily have the awareness about these types of issues, right? So under your side of the house, opposition couldn't claim that independent artists will still have like the market segmentation that they need, due to the fact that it's also important to spread like all all the messages and also spread the awareness of different types of music to people who may not have the awareness to this at all. Secondly, so how do we do this under our site, right? I think that under our site, if you don't put that much cost on big record labels, much more likely, I think that Spotify doesn't have to choose to sell between like big labels and small labels, right? Therefore, under our side of the house, it's more likely that Spotify will just integrate all of the genres and all of the artists from like different types of background, right? This is the reason why they will have much more likely have exposure, because under our side of the house, that's why we also have like daily mix, for example, daily trend of music, for example, in order for us to be able to like spread music through like shuffle playlists, so that people who don't know that this music is this knows under our side of the house, right? It's all VV6. I couldn't accept POI. Thirdly, this also perpetuates piracy under their side of the house, because the alternative under their side, is that if you cannot get so much profit through Spotify, much more likely record labels are going to sort into, like, for example, CDs, right, or exclusive streaming platform. This is dangerous, because much more likely, if people couldn't get like an affordable streaming platform, they are just going to do piracy to all of this music, right? This is what happened back in 2009, before Spotify even exists. I think that you are going to exactly backtrack the progress that we already have in the status quo. Second argument, how do we solve the problem of predatory record labels under our side of the house? I think that because under our side of the house, you have more choice of artists and more choice of record labels. This is exactly when check and balance will happen, because there are going to be competition between like record labels, right? You are going to be continuously calling out record labels, and artists are going to have like a choice to opt out of the record labels and choose the better record label. So that's why under our side of the house, checks and balance work more. Because of all these reasons, we're proud to propose.
All right, thank you, government member, for the fine speech. You spent 7 minutes and 25 seconds. Continue on to opposition member. Someone, place is yours. Hi, opposition member, are you here? All right.
Yep. Wait. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Your I preference just to chat, so please don't unmute yourself. I'm going to start in 3, 2, 1. I think the team that can win in this debate is that the team that can prove to you, number one, whether or not this is fair for the artist and the self, and second of all, whether or not this kind of the proposal will then give the benefit for both kind of the artists, whether the already settled artists, for example, or even to the extent the newcomers in the self recently or even in the future, talking about the sustainability and the self. Therefore, CO will take this debate, right? What is the difference between OO and also CO, right? I think that OO talking about the accessibility about the music, we think this is not exclusive anyway, because it happened in both sides of the house. But second of all, when we talking about the newcomers and whatnot, I think that there is no clear mechanization, and why at the end of the day these newcomers are less likely to be success at the end of the day. Or second of all, why at the end of the day this kind of newcomers will going to be success under the house is not that clear, right? Therefore, she will explain more about the justification whether or not this is fair, and second of all, whether or not this is give the beneficial for the newcomers, but also giving the beneficial for the artists in the south that already settled at the very first place. So for engagement toward the opening government, right? What is the opening government talking to you? The major case that they're talking about is that the fair competition, and also how they can push the effort coming from this artist itself at the end of the day. We don't think this is exclusive, right? Because under our side of the house, this kind of the artists, regardless of newcomers or even the artists already settled, they still have the incentive to push their performance and whatnot. Because number one, they still have a dream. They still have the target, for example, to achieve toward a certain level of income or even toward a certain level of profit, for example. But second of all, knowing that the income that they will get, even though they still get the income, it will going to be limited at the end of the day, right? The income will not going to be maximized at the end of the day, even though you still get the benefit or still get the income coming from another artist and so on and so forth. This is the reason why when you have a dreams and you also need the money, for example, to sustain your career, to fulfill your need, then at the end of the day, you still have the incentive to boost your performance. This is the reason why the benefit coming from OG is not that exclusive. But second of all, they easily to talk about how this artist can easily to sweep to another genre, for example, and so on and so forth. We don't think this is easy, right? Because number one, you have different ground, you have different fashion and stuff. Therefore, it's very hard for you to adapt with a new genre. And second of all, it needs a very long time for you to training. It means that you need to sacrifice your time, you need to sacrifice a lot of money, which is at the end of the day, is still unworth it with your condition, right? It's only worsening the condition of people. This is the reason why it's unlikely to be happen. Then CG come to this debate by saying that this streaming service at the end of the day will only expose the bigger artists and so on and so forth. We don't really this happen because knowing that number one, small artists still giving the income toward this kind of the streaming service at the end of the day. This is the reason why in order for them to getting the cumulative income, it's also important for them to also explore this kind of the newcomers and so on and so forth, right? This is the reason why this is not the case that CG need to win, right? Moving to my first substantive about the fairness that becoming the classes under all the entire government bench. Why this is unfair at the end of the day under the government bench? 3 reasons. Number one, the artists who most likely people listen to their song is that number one, they have a huge fans and already famous. Hence, at the end of the day, the loyal supporters will also giving the exposure toward this kind of the song, for example. This is the reason why they are going to be easily for them to getting the trend, for example, and getting a lot of the listener at the end of the day. And second of all, this kind of the artist is that coming from the majority, right? It means that they have a lot of privilege at the very first place to access a lot of data, access the training, for example, and also research in order for them to create a song that is fit in toward the demand of the society. But second of all, there is the relatability toward the society and itself. Hence, at the end of the day, the moment you create a song, it's very easy for the society then try to having the incentive to listen to your song regardless the quality itself at the end of the day. Compared to the minority, for example, there is the less relatability for this kind of the majority, for example, to have the incentive to listen to your song, for example, at the end of the day. This is the reason why this kind of the minority or even the newcomers, for example, doesn't have any kind of power to do that at the very first place. This is the reason why it's fair. But second reason, currently, this kind of the song that is most likely to listen by society become trend in sort of this kind of the media streaming, for example. It means that they minimize the exposure coming from another song and stuff, right? For example, the moment there is the song coming from Blackpink becoming the trend in Spotify, for example, then this kind of the song will be put in the number one of trend in itself. Hence, the society will directly click this kind of the song and listen to the song in itself at the end of the day. It means that you are going to minimize the chance and the opportunity coming from another song, which is more for the newcomers, for example, to be listened by other individual at the end of the day. It means that you are going to dim exposure this kind of another song. This is the reason why something that is also fair for you to also giving the compensation for this kind of the artist. But third reason, you still get the benefit anyway, right? Under hours of the house, because regardless the benefit is huge or not, you still get the money at the end of the day, right? But number one, sure, this is not that significant, but at least, right, the number of the number of compensation that you are going to divide it to another people is not that huge, right? Because even like the people in those genre only there is like 10 people or even 20 people and so on and so forth. Therefore, you still have the enough money to getting the income and fulfill your needed. And second of all, you still get the benefit in terms of the image in order for you to sustain your career in the future, because the society already know your capacity and also the quality of your song. This is the reason why the sustainability of your career is something that's also guaranteed under hours of the house. This is the reason why you still have the benefit. It means that it's very fair under hours of the house to give the equal compensation for the artist. Before I move, I will take OG if you have.
You never explain how much is money you gonna to have as artist, and you said it's not big if you divide it to another artist.
Yep, I think at the moment you have 1 billion, for example, then you need to divide it toward 10 people, for example, you still get the money like 100. Yeah, this is just analogy. You still have the 100 presentation of those kind of the income. Whether this is enough for you, moreover, you still have another cooperation with another company, for example, something like sponsorship or even and so on and so forth, which is still enough. But second of all, it will be better because you have the sustainability of your career, and I will explain it later about the up and down of art industry in itself, right? Second of all, talking about the sustainability and directly clash within the POI coming from opening government, why it will be better under hours of the house. Number one, talking about the newcomers and also the minority that never clear under the opening government. I think this is this equal compensation will empower the newcomers in itself. This is important because newcomers have a complexity of the motivation in itself, right? They easily to opt out come from this industry simply because they think there's no opportunity for them to be success. This means that you are going to sacrifice the satisfaction of individual and less likely to pursue their career. But second of all, for the current, this kind of famous artists, for example, that OG and also CG want to protect, I think that at the end of the day, the art industry, there is the up and down in itself, right? Your song maybe not becoming popular anymore in 10 years later. This is the reason why it's very important for us to giving the incentive for this kind of the artists to have sustain and also safety net in the future. This is the reason why sustainability for profit is going to be better. Very proud to post.
All right, thank you, opposition member, for the fine speech. You spent 7 minutes and 14 seconds. Now I'm going to call upon the last speaker from the government bench, government whip. Chairman, place is yours.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Wait a second. For POI, please state it through chats. I already opened my chat box, so I'll be watching. Okay, starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. OG is reluctant to bite the bullet of what if this new artist is as vulnerable as OO claims. I think that CG will be the only team in the government bench that proves why exactly our proposal will cater this vulnerable artist even better in comparison to the whole opposition bench. This will also break openings deadlock about which artist to prioritize, because we're going to concede like small artists and also big artists can also have their own challenges, and we're also going to deal in the scenario to some extent that these smaller artists probably are much more vulnerable. But notice that in CO, their argument never progressed at all, because there was no response to the idea that my member has brought to you about exclusion from Spotify, about how record labels will opt out from Spotify the moment they will not get proper compensation, because now the artists that they put into the Spotify or in the iTunes will not give the same compensation, will not get the proper compensation, rather in comparison to the capital that this particular record label has injected, for example, the particular capital that they have invested. Notice that without any responses coming from opposition whip, notice at this point will still stand. Okay, going to my speech. Let's engage with CO first. So CO brought you 2 things. First, that there will be performance boost because there are more money. But second of all, they try to claim that privileged artists are undeserving. Okay, let's rebut this one by one. They claim that there will be performance boost because there's more money injected for the smaller artists. This is unlikely because money is not the only thing that can boost your performance. It requires talent, it requires your connection, whether or not you're whether or not your talent is spotted by like bigger artists, so they can ask you for collaborations or get you featured in their new music videos, for example. 3 reasons why it's unlikely there will be performance boost in their side of the house. First, notice that the fans of bigger artists will cancel and boycott your music because they think that their artists, their idols are not properly compensated, but the money that they deserve actually goes to you. Notice that smaller artists will be much more disincentivized to enter the music career, noticing that they will be cancelled by the fans of Taylor Swift or Ariana Grande, for example. Second of all, bigger artists will see you as stealing their art. So it is unlikely they will want to collaborate or to feature you in their music video. Notice you cannot climb up your career ladder because like these people will just skip you or outcast you from their collaboration. Third of all, this also disincentivizes smaller artists to grow because in the future, as the moment that they get famous, the moment they get into as famous as Billie Eilish or Ariana Grande, the compensation gets stolen, right? So most likely the artists in your side of the house will stay stagnant and more likely unincentivized to produce better albums or to like project better sales or to get their music much more streamed because like in the end, like their wealth will be stolen. But second of all, they try to claim that privileged artists are undeserving because like they're less vulnerable, and the only person that we need to prioritize are minority artists. Notice that it's not like minority artists have like really big barrier of entry to get into music career. Notice that minority who are talented can still win the competition. Notice like there are people like Rihanna, Khalid, Shakira, Beyonce. Notice that 21st century record label gets more diverse and people now appreciate Black and Latin culture, and you can capitalize this particular culture into music, right? That's why Rihanna can bring music like Te Amo, for example, or even like Shakira can bring Latin songs and dance to that, because like this specific culture is what they can capitalize to win the competition, and that becomes the significant identity. So it's not true minority will not be able to compete anyway. But second of all, you can still go viral in TikTok if your music is used in challenges, right? I know it's arbitrary, but it doesn't mean you have no chance at all, right? Like some random artists can get their music suddenly famous just in the span of 1 week, simply because like Charlie D'Amelio or Dixie D'Amelio dance using their music, right? So it's not like the barrier of entry for this minority is so hard and it's so unbreakable. So I don't think they need this so-called cross subsidies, right? Lastly, how does our extension play in the debate? This directly responds to OO, but also slightly to CO, right? First, we prove you that we save streaming platforms by making record labels stay and wanting to make deals with us because they're compensated properly. In opposition, these people will most likely leave because they think that this streaming platform gives them no comparative advantage. This is important. First, streaming services mostly are not reaching BEP. It's only that in 2021 that Spotify reached profit of total $23 million. Notice before 2021, they barely reached BEP and keep on having loss every quarter. Second of all, its survival is important to make sure people like us can access music and get entertainment to escape this hard life, right? So accessibility of music is not only benefiting the streaming platform, but also to general middle class or society like us that wants to access music. But second of all, we prevent piracy by encouraging accessibility of music. Notice that in our side, music is going to be much more accessible when big artists stay in our side. That means it's like more accessible that we can access Ariana Grande music by just paying for like, I don't know, 10,000 subscription fee of Spotify for a week, for example. This is important for both big and small artists. For the big artists, they're compensated well, but small artists is the same. But notice that their labels are so small, and most likely they don't have capital to do lawsuits against piracy cases, right? So it's better for us because we prevent piracy cases to emerge anyway. POIOO.
Record label will not pull out simply because only if these kinds of motions actually put into charts. Because, for example, the high quality one will actually find popularity ranking, publicizing, and all social media will actually be way too valuable to actually give up, especially the money that they need to get in is very cheap as well compared to that. And listener demand on Spotify is very significant to actually bring those music back into the streaming services, even if they want to pull out.
No.
Thank you.
Okay, no, it's not true because there are still other alternative for these record labels to tap into. Either they create their own private streaming service that is exclusively for their fans. Second of all, they sell their music on YouTube and just making music videos which are like which are probably less appealing to us as like Spotify listeners. But third of all, most likely these artists will be forced to go into concerts and also live music, for example, which is much more inaccessible for people like us, right? But lastly, we answer the whole opposition's concern about lack of exposure, because when we have more users on our side, we can provide complete tracks of artists that most people like. It's easier for us to promote new artists in Discover Weekly and Daily Mix because like the algorithm can suit them, right? In opposition, when big artists leaves, so are their listeners. Why is that true? 3 reasons. First, there are precedents. When Taylor Swift leaving Spotify makes significant decrease of Spotify users, it reached tens of thousands. Second of all, there's idol culture. But third of all, streaming service will no longer look worthy of subscription fee, right? Lastly, our worst case, maybe a small artist will not get money, but that's okay because that means there's nobody interested in this particular artist. Well, it's so sad, but that means no matter how much money you can pour into them, they will not grow anyway, right? Very proud to propose.
All right, thank you. Government Whip, you spend 7 minutes and 24 seconds. Now to conclude the whole debate, I would like to call upon Opposition Whip. Chairman, place is yours.
Check, I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay. If you have any POI, just can type in the chat box, please. Yes. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. not Eju, that this streaming service has a very large market, right? Therefore, we think that you will, like fear when you opt out that you will like give like less significant income, for example. Therefore, we don't think that all of artists will opt out, such as the all of the government benches scenario, right? But second of all, I think that some of for some of the artists still can the exposures on like illegal platform, for example. But we think where's the incentive for all of these people? Because I think that there is no incentive for them instead of like report and so on and so forth. Therefore, that all of the best case scenario, all of the government benches cannot credit in this debate, right? But before that, several distinctions from the opening opposition, right? I think that first, they never prove you why the fairness of the specific artists that divided equal compensations is fair, for example, because they neglect like hard work and so on and so forth. Second of all, like the accessibility of music, but they never give the bigger impact. So, third of all, I think that there is less of engagement, like the competition and so on and so forth. Therefore, at OO only focus on the newcomers and and without proof, like a famous still get the benefit and so on and so forth, right? But several engagement to the government case, right? I think that government case from the OJ is that they focus on the survivability, right? I think that first new artists still protected like government funding such as concert, for example. First of all, not all the new artists, if government want to, like create concert, for example, exactly they want to choose the popular one. Second of all, like the program for government that always happen, like it might once a month, for example. Therefore, we don't think that this is like sustainable, right? Also, CG concept that, oh, there is like the competition, for example, for new artists. I think that first, when they fail, they don't have any incentive, they don't have any profit at all. And also like the huge competitions in like the Indonesian Idol and so on and so forth, we don't think that they can be able to survive, right? But second of all, that CG also consider like why label, they fear of label, right? Because I think that label still exists under also the house. Because why? Because of three things. First, this is the responsibility to make their artists grow. For example, like Ariana and also Bruno Mars, they still continuously like continue their album and so on and so forth. Second of all, they need the fame from these artists, for example, because we question which label that want to leave Ariana just because they, for example, less of incentive from the Spotify, for example. Third of all, I think the capital of label is not only from the Spotify and so on and so forth. Therefore, like other sources like advertisement and so on and so forth, and also like the cooperations with the other parties still exist. Therefore, that label, therefore we take this burden, right? And lastly, that CG brings to you like the growth or exposure and also toxic environment, right? To respond to this first in terms of the growth and also exposure, right? I think that Ariana sells like note exposure happen because Ariana music still dominated in the music services, like put in the daily playlist 50 viral, for example. We don't think that your exposure should dismissed, right? And second of all, in terms of what like toxic environment, why this is less of like collaborations as CG said, right? I think that the more artists exist in that platform, moreover like new artists in trending that easily to create like collaboration, right? Like new artists will likely to involve because of three things. First, they need the popularity. Moreover, you can collab with the famous artists. Second of all, they incentivize because they think that the environment is very supportive to help each other to grow, for example. And third of all, like the toxic environment will never happen unless that they actually like too capitalist and so on and so forth. Therefore, we think that how the supportive environment still happen under our side of the house, right? And lastly, about the product, like the illegal platform, for example, we established that first there is more likely under the side of the house because exactly the moment this new artist, the moment that Ariana Grande, for example, they never involved to this. Second of all, it's more likely to happen because in their side when new artists to involve to this because the alternative that they have to put in the illegal platform, but we think that this is never happen under us of the house when you actually help them to give the compensations, equal compensations at the end of the day, right? Two classes under our of the house. First of all, I think that why we can prove to you are the fair competitions that lead to the motivation of artists to gain more money. For sure, it has happened in our side of the house because why? Because of two things. First, the artists they have the intention to extend their career to always generate new arts, for example. Second of all, the fame, for example, like trending, the lead to attractive. For example, how artists like musicians, for example, have collabed with the film or advertisement because of the fame that is very important. This is clashes directly with the recognitions of government side. It is still exists, for example, because they still recognized by the trending or by their like their image in terms of musician, for example. Therefore, we don't think this is exclusive under the side of the house, right? The second of all, I think this is the most important thing, and under the causing opposition is that the innovation. This is more likely because why? Because these artists have the safety net first. They still have like the regular income or annual income, for example. Therefore, can be able to create new arts, for example, by themselves, because like the safety net in itself, right? Therefore, it leads to the more new arts, for example, more involvement in the market, for example, and this leads to the healthy competitions and good for the streaming services, because the innovations always continue rather than in that of the house, because they stuck on that people at the end of the day. But before that, is there any POI from yes, OG?
You have to compare first how fine it is to disvalue quality of music and normalize low quality one just because they are new. Don't you think the aftermath of your mechanism is bad for music proliferation?
I think that first, when you are come up when you are opt into this kind of Spotify, for example, exactly the moment that people attract you that much, because the moment that your music, for example, much demanding, for example. Second of all, I think that exactly sure that you are a musician, right? You are going to grow, for example, you want to grow to exclusively, extend your skills, for example. Exactly this happen under our side of the house. Therefore, we don't think this is exclusive under your side of the house, right? But lastly, how under our side of the house, like the corporations will likely to happen, like not edu that the music industry evolve rapidly with the trending artists, which is different, for example, such as in Korea, like Twice, Blackpink, or Revolve in streaming service, for example. The moment these artists like have down rate, for example, when the listener is low or under trending, for example, like ups and downs, like my member said, for example, it means that they still can like get income, or they still can get like supportive environment, means they still can cooperate one another, right? It means that all artists still can opt in to this market, and exactly this is good for the competitions, for example, and this is good for the this is good for this is good for the sustainability of these people at the end of the day. And lastly, we think that what the CEO can win in this debate because of two things. First, we give the explanation on how this is fair because of the dominations of this popular artist excess. Second of all, we give the safety net first to this new artists, for example, for them to keep in towards this kind of music industry. And third of all, we give to you like the innovation and also collaborations, because I think that compensation is temporary, but the sustainability to always cooperate and also to attract the demand for the continuous demand is very important. Therefore, we're very, very proud to close.
All right, thank you very much, Opposition Whip, for the fine speech. You spent 7 minutes and 15 seconds. Thank you, everyone. That marks the end of this debate. Now you can wait for further announcement later. And for the other judges, we're going to relocate to the other room for deliberation. Thank you very much, everyone.